Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Welcome to Bourbon Street for Friday, October 23rd. My name is Mark Harrison, although today I'm going to go with Coach MH3, if that's okay with you, Don, because the reference will make sense in a few minutes. Do you want to add anything to your name today there?
No, I'm good with Don.
Good with Don?
Short and simple. Yeah.
All right. Well, lots gone on. You know, we've had the August where we thought life was looking good. In the last few weeks, as we talked about last week, life's not necessarily looking so good. The dreaded second wave is behind us. Don, you guys are talking to thousands. Let me back up. You're literally talking to millions of consumers around the world every week. Give us a dose of reality. What's going on out there? What's in people's heads? What's in your head?
I'll start with what's in people's heads. There's so many numbers floating around. Everyone's focusing on cases, hospitalization, deaths, global, Canada, by province, by York region, whatever it might be. So we went and talked to 12,000 people, Canada, US, just to find out how they're doing now relative to 3 months ago. And you just mentioned that. So we're talking June, July versus now.
Okay.
And we're looking at the numbers at the bottom of 7.5, 4.4, and 2.9 is in Canada, 7.5 million Canadians, 13 plus, are much more stressed today than 3 months ago. It has nothing to do with COVID numbers. That's what COVID is doing to them and their humanity. 4.4 million people are feeling much more helpless because they have nothing to control. So you look at that, 2.9 are feeling more inspired. So they've got over the hump and they're actually dealing with it. But if you look at the 7.5 plus 4.4, we're at a deficit of about 10 million people. And the point is, that's the human story. The fact is, the cases do matter, but the human cases of 7.5 million Canadians, that's about 40% of those 13 plus, are feeling much more stressed. And what's the long-term impact? While we'll probably spend close to $1 trillion in the next, we have spent or will spend $71,000 per household just for a sanity check. What's going to be the human toll? Is it going to be double that? Triple that? Like, what's actually going to happen? So again, this, not to be the depressing person, but the fact is the toll is massive. So while we do need to close, if we do not close strategically and surgically, the risk is that much greater. I don't want to sound like Donald Trump, but the fact is it's that much greater if we don't have surgical closing throughout. So that's just a dose of reality before we get into this week's show, which would be much more uplifting than I have been. But there is severe concern it's getting worse, not better.
Well, let's talk about with a local Toronto entrepreneur some of the impacts of these ongoing closures. Welcoming, hey, Jane Noonan, owner of the Door Pub on Danforth. I know that Don's been in there at some point in his life. He just doesn't remember how he got in, and I'm going to talk. But good morning, Jane. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So maybe before we get into the interview side of things, we can take a quick look. You obviously, as an owner of a bar, have been dealing with the ups and downs, the various changes in policies, and I know you've kind of been all over the news this week. So why don't we have a little look-see? I know it's awkward to watch yourself on a show, on another show, but I think just set some context, and then I'd love to hear a little bit more about life as a business owner.
Sure.
Saturday afternoon on the Danforth and curbside patio at Bourbon St Irish Pub is busy. A welcome change from the past week.
It's been pretty quiet, to be fair. No real surprise there.
Customers in coats and mittens bundled up to enjoy a drink. No one knows how long they'll keep coming.
As it gets colder, people will just stop coming out because it's just uncomfortable. You could maybe sit outside for 30 minutes or an hour, but after that, you're just too cold.
Next door at Allen's, the back patio is bustling. From the fire pit to the propane heaters, it is warm too.
I'm not sure what exactly is going to happen when it gets colder, but for now we're going to just keep going ahead like this as long as people want to sit outside.
But even in the warmth of this patio, staff say the past week has seen a slowdown in sales.
We're very fortunate to have this beautiful patio back here. That's very well spaced out. So we have a lot of regulars who come here, and they've continued to come and been loyal, which has been amazing for us.
With shuttered establishments just steps away, restaurant and bar owners are forced to think creatively.
I'm thinking about hot water bottles, actually. Trying to buy hot water bottles in bulk and just offering to add them onto people's tabs at the night. So that's something. And the BIA in the neighborhood is getting thermal blankets that we can give to customers. They're not the sexiest things you've ever seen, but they should do the trick.
Many bars and restaurants have their fingers crossed that this weather will hold for the latest round of restrictions, with at least 3 weeks left to go. And it's not just the temperature, but think about snow and snow removal. For patios, like these curbside patios here along the Danforth, when snow removal starts and they have to start clearing snow from the Danforth, these patios will have to go. One business owner saying today, when their curbside patio goes, so too does their restaurant.
Well, Don, you were going to ask a question about the sexy thermal blankets, weren't you?
What color are they?
Well, I was going to say that the good news is that the sexy thermal blankets come today.
Oh, do they?
So the BIA are running a neat program called The Thrill of the Chill, and they're providing the thermal blankets to bar and restaurant owners in the neighborhood, and they're also doing $5 coupons for customers to spend within the BIA, so they can spend it at your bar or restaurant, or at my bar or restaurant, or at any store along the BIA. So they're kicking that off officially tomorrow, but the blankets come to the bars today. So, if you want a little sass in your Friday night, come and get your own silver blanket.
When does the curbside end unofficially?
November 8th is the last day. They start to take the patios away on November 9th, the curbside.
And you cannot, from my understanding, you cannot put those heaters or fire pits, obviously, on the road. Is that correct? Only in your own personal place, backyard?
You can't put a fire pit on the street. You can put the stand-up heaters on the street, but I just couldn't get them. They were all sold out.
Jane, actually, I want to go backwards for a second. So you own a bar that's almost a quarter century old. But you had a career, or have a career, you were corporate for a long time, in business and marketing, communications, and economic development. How long have you owned the pub? What made you make the switch? And give us a little backstory. And then we'll talk about 2 weeks ago when Doug Ford made your life even worse.
As you said, Mark, my background is marketing, communications, event management, and I did that for 15 or 16 years. I bought the pub in June of 2018. And prior to that, I had been running an Irish charity called the Ireland Fund of Canada. But I knew I was just ready to do something different, and I wanted a new challenge. And Dorkio is my local. I live in that neighborhood, and I've been, a customer there for 20 years. And so when the opportunity presented itself, it felt right, and it felt like a good next step for me to take in my career. And I have absolutely loved every minute of it. It's a great place, and the staff are amazing. The customers are amazing. In lots of ways, it's almost like a co-op. I own it, but everybody that goes there feels ownership over it. So it's a really amazing community.
Don, over to you.
Over to me. So you look at that. I guess my key question always is, what does success look like? So you got November 8th. You've got the fact that we're closed down right now for inside the restaurants. What does success look like? What do you think could be done, or what would you like to see be done for all these great establishments to survive, which we need? I mean, we need to be able to go out and socialize safely. So what would you like to be done?
Yeah, I think, I think a simple solution is to allow bars and restaurants to put outdoor seating on the sidewalks, and even maybe allow us to put some temporary structures, whether that's a two-sided tent or something that just gives a little bit of shelter from the winter. I think that could be a really easy thing for the city to do. The curb lanes was a really easy thing for them to do, and it was amazing. It made a massive difference for my pub, for sure. And this could be another way that they could shift to allow bars and restaurants like mine that don't have a backyard patio to continue to open for as long as the indoor closure continues.
Is there lobbying going on by the BIA and others? Obviously, same issue across most parts of Toronto, York region, wherever. Is there something going forth, or what does the government say right now? Is it just done?
I mean, I think in fairness, the city of Toronto, they are trying to do whatever they can to give businesses a leg up so that they can continue to be open. So I think that they will, in all likelihood, provide sidewalk space. I think it's unlikely that they'll let us put some sort of temporary structure on the sidewalk. Again, I think it's related to snow clearing. If you have a tent on the sidewalk, then you can't sort of shovel around it, and there's accessibility issues. But I think they probably will let us put tables and chairs on the sidewalk, but without any sort of barrier protecting us from the elements.
But you have to take those things in every night, right? Like you have to basically.
So right now, everything goes out every day and then comes in every day. So it's a lot of work for sure. I guess you get used to it, but yeah, you can't leave anything out, whether it's a sidewalk or.
When you bought the bar in 2018, if somebody said, "Oh, by the way, every night you've got to stack up all the tables and chairs, and every day you got to bring," would you have gone?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It doesn't make any. You wouldn't do it. You go, right. Why would I do that? That doesn't make sense. But look, if I didn't take the tables out, they wouldn't be there in the morning when I went back the next day. Someone else would help themselves to them. So I understand why we have to take everything in every day, but it's a lot of work for sure. Yeah. It's not the easiest way to run a business, and it's also a weather dependent business. Like, who would have ever thought running a pub would be weather dependent? It's such an unusual time.
So things continue, and we're probably at 700-800 cases today. Who knows? And I'm talking Ontario, probably 350 in Toronto. That continues through the end of December in stage 2. What happens to your pub January?
I mean, right now I'll close. November 8th will be my last day that I'll be open until they allow indoor dining, because I'll lose the curb space, and my sidewalk space is just a little bit more complicated. So I'll close until I'm allowed to reopen inside, and which I suspect will be a pretty lengthy closure.
So let's just break this down into human terms. So how many employees do you have, full-time, part-time? What are we talking in terms of job losses? I
have 9 employees, and so I've laid off 2 already, and so they'll go on EI or the new CRB program.
Right. And in a typical December evening, how many patrons would you have?
December would be certainly probably our busiest month. Our capacity is 107, so pretty much for the whole month of December, we sit around that number. Mondays and Tuesdays. It's a great month for all bars and restaurants. So to lose that business will have a really, really significant impact.
So Don, you're the numbers guy. So I'm going to ask you a question, which you can fuel to ask your question of Jane. But going back to your earlier numbers, get your calculator ready. Now let's think about 9 people plus a proprietor plus hundreds of people. What's the impact?
Well, we have to be surgical. The fact is, the vaccine's not coming tomorrow. It's not coming in March with wide distribution. We got to be planning through, obviously, September 2021, optimistically, possibly. And if we do not become surgical and not blanket, there's going to be endless turmoil or closures across. And the impact on mental health or feeling stressed or feeling helpless among everyone will be that much greater, because right now you'll have 100 patrons on a day, plus the 10 people, plus their families, just exacerbating that situation. So we'll keep monitoring the human toll, but I think that's what people should be talking about. Yes, the cases are crucial, but how it's impacting humanity is really what matters. We just got to get smarter, and hopefully asking politicians to get smarter with all due respect, it may be difficult because they're always motivated by something else. So hopefully they wake up and understand lots will be lost, lots more will be lost. And we'll be talking to multiple trillions of dollars, which we don't have, to try and get out of this mess. Anyway, Jane, I wish you luck, that's for sure.
That was a question. Jane, so as you mentioned, the city of Toronto's been working hard, but let's be clear. As a business owner, give us the 3 things you think should happen, universally, if you could wave a magic wand, and how can people that are watching this show help you accomplish them?
Good question. I think that for me, the absolute number one thing that has to happen is the new rent relief program has got to get rolled out. It's been announced, and they have the bones of it, but it needs to pass through legislation, and they haven't done that yet. And so business owners now are, since October 1st, are really in a difficult place around rent. So, and that is everybody's number one expense. So they have absolutely got to get that program up and running for people so they can access it and apply. So that's the number one thing. I think some education around how bars and restaurants are operating. We are held to a really high standard. We all wear masks every day at work. Everything is wiped down on a regular basis. The air circulation is much better than it is in somebody's home. I think it's interesting that they've closed indoor dining because to me, it's safer to be in a bar or a restaurant than it is to be in somebody's house. And so I think that they need to step back and review the reason for closing indoor dining and determine, to your point about the human impact, what is that doing, and it's driving people into homes, and the cases are going to go up consequently. It's going to have the exact opposite effect of what they want. So I think that they should either provide the numbers and the reasons for why they've closed indoor dining, or shift and re-educate people about why it is the safer choice than to be in somebody's house. And the third thing, I think those two are pretty good.
Well, third thing will be, we will continue to advocate for this. Thank you for joining us from Georgian Bay. Good luck with those sexy thermal blankets. Don, Don, a little happy hour, you and me tonight.
We will see you soon.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
We'll see you sooner than you'll want to see us.
Yes.
Thanks, Jane.
Be good.
Hey, Don, we're going to talk a little politics here. Eric, you can throw up maybe the time image, but not politically politics. But what's interesting about this U.S. election and last night's debate probably, didn't really give us the headlines that the other ones did outside the fact that they were civil. But right now, and, you're a numbers guy, there's over 40 million Americans that have voted early. I think it's somewhere like 30% of the numbers that voted in 2016. What are your thoughts on all these organizations that are just literally... they're just advocating for people to vote? Time for the first time, no pun intended, in 100 years, it's changed taken their name off the masthead and gone with vote. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the fact that they cannot make it political, they make it about the vote, the action of, it could be one of the greatest benefits that comes out of this, what's going on in the election. And obviously the mask is on for coronavirus. I think it's fantastic that brands, people, institutions, organizations are just promoting and getting to vote. And there are obviously restrictions why they are doing that. But I mean, the nonpartisan message out to hopefully have, rather than 120 million people vote in the US, have 200 million people vote and let them decide who should run the next US government is a fantastic. I don't know how anyone can denounce it. It's just applause for all those people doing this type of work.
One of my favorite stories this week was Mildred Madison, who literally traveled over 300 miles to cast her vote early. Eric, can we just run this quick video of this story on Mildred?
I want to make sure my vote counted.
A 94-year-old Michigan woman traveled nearly 300 miles to make sure her vote was cast in the upcoming election. Mildred Madison has been caring for her sister just outside Chicago and was going to vote absentee, but her ballot for the August primary in Michigan was late, and she didn't want to take any chances for the general election. She tells WJBK her son and daughter drove her to the Detroit City Clerk's office to hand in her ballot.
Amazing. 72 years she's been voting.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, as we know, people typically don't get voted in, they get voted out. And if you're going to travel 300 miles just to make sure that happens, it's one person I know out of 320 million, but it is sending a message to what's going on, I believe, in the south of us.
I mean, and it would be great because, quite frankly, here in Canada, one of the biggest issues we have is people not voting. We narrowly escaped an election this week in Canada.
We did, and again, politics is a horrible business, and right now it's makes me feel depressed about what goes on and transparency and clarity. But we don't need an election right now, that is for sure. Who knows what back deals were made, but let's move on to some other inspirational topics.
Now, not to be partisan, but, AOC issues, Noah and Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, had a pretty neat TikTok challenge. I know you guys did some studying on this, but let's have a quick look at it, and then I'd like your comments on her recent TikTok.
163,000 of you guys are hopping on. This is nuts.
Yes, on Discord.
Sorry, Pokey. I am so nervous, though. I really, really, really hope that I don't get imposter first. Knowing my luck, that's exactly what's going to happen, but we'll see.
Everyone here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Imagine showing up to the doctor and just saying you need help and getting it without having to take out your credit card or anything like that. I mean, I think one of the reasons why it's so politically difficult here in the United States to advocate for a system like that is because people just don't even believe it's possible. I think it's Ilhan. Because the doors were locked.
I think it's Alex. I was just
no. Because the doors, I was trying.
all the doors and then opened one of them.
It's so important that each and every one of us turns out to vote. And if you can't vote, ask your family, ask your parents, ask your cousins, ask everyone you know that can vote what their voting plan is.
Okay, so of course I said TikTok when it was Twitch. I know I'm old, but I know the difference between them. And then we've got Triller coming. So every social platform with a T. But thoughts on that?
Well, the fact that they go to Twitch and get 450,000 people viewing, she spent 3 hours on there. So huge levels of engagement throughout. I think 4.5 million people at some point in time. But look at her age. I mean, we got two running people that total over 150 years in age. We have someone who's youthful, who actually understands something with technology. I think it's fantastic. I mean, the fact is, applying different channels. Same things happen with broadcast of sports. It's not just broadcast. You see it drop. You got to be in every single point. I mean, Obama taught that back, 8 years or 10 years ago. The fact is fantastic. 4.5 million people. Kudos to using the mediums that are out there, to both parties. It's a win for Twitch. It's a win for her.
Well, you and I are over 100 combined, and we're pretty freaking youthful. But age is just a mindset. Let's talk about age. I want to invite my next guest in talking about Boomerang. Hey, Kevin, nice to see you. Kevin and I have coached football together for a decade, but you've gone from being an advertising agency owner to doing something kind of neat with a big COVID Boomerang. So tell us a little bit about SideOne.
Sure, I'd love to. And thanks for having me on, both of you. So SideOne is an online magazine. It's a flippable online magazine, and it's aimed at our generation, my generation, baby boomers. And it comes from what I saw as a need to have content not about baby boomers and not about retirement and not about aging, but about topics that were of interest to people of our generation that weren't being brought up in mainstream publications that they were reading previously. That's where we started from. And it comes from my background as a student, where I was a student journalist and an editor of a twice monthly newspaper at the ripe old age of 17. So I'm reaching backwards into my youth.
All right. So let's go ahead, Don. We can talk about black and white photography later, Kevin.
How long did you have this planned for? And give me 10 seconds on what it's like to coach with Mark.
10 seconds won't do it. So I've had this sort of ruminating in my mind for a while. But if I were to tag a particular date on it, it was around the middle of June of this year. COVID took a bit of a chunk out of my main business and slowed things down and gave me an opportunity to think a bit more. And so I came up with the concept. I tested it out on a number of people, talked to a whole bunch and got some ideas, and decided that by September I was going to publish. And so between June 15th and September 15th, we put the magazine together, the logo, the design, got all the writers in and had them start contributing. And yeah, September 15th, we were out there.
That's fantastic, Speed. And if this slowdown hadn't happened, when do you believe SideOne would have been launched?
I don't know if it would have been. It might have come much later. Prior to it was very busy. And so I did have something like this on my radar for quite a while, sort of a convergence of a number of things. You know, I felt that some of my favorite publications were no longer as relevant to me. So that was one issue that I saw. And I also know a lot of people from my past who are writers who aren't actively engaged in writing right now and still have great stories to tell. So I saw those two things coming together, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what can I do? Where will this fit? And I had a personal need to try and make a positive contribution to the public dialogue that's out there. And yeah, so
that's great. Congratulations on that. That's for sure.
Thank you.
To put that together that quickly, I know I try and do things, and 4 months seems like forever, and you can't even get started with 4 months. But now 10 seconds on Mark, coaching with Mark.
Coaching with Mark. So Mark's a pretty passionate guy. And when you see him on the sidelines, you know, and you get to share that passion, and sometimes it can be overpowering. But I've always found that he still beyond that can lend an ear. So if I kind of come up next to him and say, "Hey, what about this?" I know that maybe not in the moment, but a little later, he's going to come back and go, "Yeah, okay, we're going to try that." And so, yeah,
that's great.
It's been a lot of fun.
So when's the next issue come out?
The next issue just came out on the 15th of October. So we're going to publish on the 15th of every month. It's a monthly magazine. So it came out last week, and we're already working on the next issue. We're editing the copy for it right now, and we're doing the story lineup for December. So we're moving along quickly.
And contributing writers, are you reach out to people? Like I see, you have everything from concussions to the Rolling Stones to a bunch of different things. Do you have a lineup of writers, or is it you busy?
Yeah, I've got a lineup of writers that I'm working with, and I'm also reaching out to people who I think, for example, Mark was a contributor this month, who have personal experience stories to share. Because I think, you know, given the age of the demographic we're going after, that's an important thing. And I think we can tell stories from that angle. So, for example, the person who wrote the concussion story is someone who is recovering on a long-term basis from a concussion. Now, as a coach, Mark and I have had to deal with this for years, the growth of concussions among people. So it was a personal interest topic for sure. And so I look for those experiential opportunities among the people that I know. And again, I know a lot of writers and a lot of people have done some interesting things, and it sort of comes from there. So, you know, we have a story of a teacher who left Montreal and went up to teach in northern Quebec among the Cree. Now, that's not a typical journalistic story, but it's a great experiential story.
Yeah, look, it's great stuff. Over to you, Mark.
Well, thanks, Kevin. Great having you on. I appreciate the opportunity to write my article, which is called The Last Season. Kevin and I patrolled the sidelines together for a long time, and I think we both love both what the kids get out of it, but you and I get out of it as old men. So good luck with SideOne. One last close, because we're over time here, but why the name for the younger viewers?
Sure. So SideOne, for those of us who grew up with vinyl, was always the side that had the best music. So we're hoping we can do the same thing in the magazine with the best articles you can find.
All right. Well, thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Don. Thanks, everybody, for watching. This is Bourbon Street. Be safe. Wear a mask. Promote the Dora Keogh. Let's get our lives back.
Good luck to you all. Have a good weekend.